We gotta review it, because you might just blurt out something like, how high is Boulder on the
We don't trust you. We want to make sure we know what you're asking. Ready? Okay, well, good evening. Welcome to the City Commission Candidate Forum, hosted tonight by our Coffeyville Area Chamber of Commerce and our partners. We'd like to recognize our Platinum and Gold members who help make events like this possible for our community. So tonight's event is sponsored by Acme Foundry, Amazon.com, the City of Coffeyville, Coffeyville Family Practice, Coffeyville Journal, Coffeyville Resources, LLC, Coffeyville Regional Medical Center, Community National Bank and Trust, Community State Bank, Condon Bank and Trust, Five Star Auto Sales, John Deere Coffeyville Works, Liebert Brothers Electric, Mueller Construction, Sleep Inn and Suites and Liberty Center, Southwire, Stewart Title, and Windsor Place at our Platinum levels. Our Gold Chamber sponsors for tonight's event are the Asbury Village, Coffeyville Community College, George Realtors, Jensen International, Medical Lodges, Midwest Real Estate, and Walmart. I'm Yvonne Hull, and I will be your moderator for this evening. We will start with a 2-minute open for each of the candidates, and then we will go into questions. You will have 1 minute to respond to the questions. Following that, we will have a 1-minute close for each candidate. We have a lot of questions that have been submitted from our community, so we will not be able to get to all the questions that were submitted, but we will try to pick the ones that we think address the most issues of those in our community. So we are certainly glad to have each and every one of you here with us tonight. And we will rotate questions and answers so that not each person has to go first. So let's get started with our 2-minute open, and we will start with Mr. Edwards.
My name is Don Edwards. I am a 33-year resident of the city of Coffeyville. I like to joke with people and tell them that I was born in Independence, but my parents had the good sense to move 20 miles south. I grew up here, went to school, graduated from Phil Kinley, Coffeyville Community College. This is my second stint on the Coffeyville City Commission. I've been a commissioner for about 5.5, 6 years. And I am running for re-election and asking for your vote on April 2nd because I want to continue the work that we've started, particularly in the last 6 months with our new city manager, Gary Bradley, sitting over there. And as I see it, the 3 big issues that I would like to see addressed and done so in a more thorough fashion than in the past are the city streets, city cleanup, and working closely with the community, our business base, and Montgomery County Action Council to recruit and retain good-paying jobs to our community. Thank you.
My name is Pam Jones. I'm currently a Coffeyville City Commissioner. I have served 6 years, and I want to continue on the commission because I feel like we are making positive steps to clean up our town. I always feel like a first impression is a lasting impression, and I want to have our town with a positive curb appeal. I think we're on the right direction. You might be interested to know that right now we have about 1,800 people that work in Coffeyville that do not live here, and I want to entice people when they come see our community. They don't right off the bat see that we have a hospital, a fantastic school system, a fantastic college. They don't see that. We need to provide a positive curb appeal, a positive impression for the people. And I've said it over and over that if we have more businesses, industry means more people. More people means better housing. Better housing creates more taxes equals more money from improvements in our infrastructure, like our streets. And right now with our new city manager, I see that we are going in a right direction. I was born and raised here and married here, and this is my hometown. And I want to see it grow, and I love this town. And I want to do what's right for it, and I want to improve the quality of life for our citizens. Thank you.
My name is Marcus Kassler. I have lived here my whole life. I was born and raised. I truly believe that Coffeyville leadership is in need of some change. I heartily believe that this change has to happen now. A lot of people are crying out for different things. I had a survey sent out, and those survey results were great. Were probably great. And I know that people want change. I know people are sick of the same things being, yes, progress has been made. Yes, houses has been torn down. Some streets have been repaired. But there have been streets in this town that have gone about 30 years without being repaved or anything. That's terrible. And the reason they do this is simply because people don't travel down there. Well, south of the stockyards, people use that, believe it or not, but it's getting ignored. Housing is a problem. Why would those people who live out city want to live here when there's no housing available? We have great things, but people don't want housing to come in because their nose is too stuck up in the air worrying about low-income families. I know low-income families, and there are some hard-working low-income families that deserve housing in this town. A lot of things are going on that we need to address. Downtown does not look very pleasant, and it needs to look better. I have a plan and action to make it look better, and I want to work with Downtown Coffeyville and Chamber of Commerce to make it look better. It is time for a change, and I hope you will vote for me so I can start the change. I guarantee change. It's not an empty promise. I guarantee you change.
Mr. Williams?
Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Coffeyville, my name is Chris Williams. I'm a 17-year veteran of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office and been a part of Coffeyville community for most of my adult life. I'm running for City Commission based on one concept. I believe that Coffeyville's future is just as bright as Coffeyville's past. I believe that Coffeyville has some issues that we need to address. I think that the issues that we need to address are, number one, our infrastructure. We need to invest in our own community and invest in our infrastructure. That includes streets, that includes the infrastructure of the city. If I'm elected to this position, I am going to support businesses, I am going to support economic development, and I am going to support youth programs and child safety in this community. One thing that is dear to me, and that's fundamentally my concept for running, is I was born and raised in Coffeyville. Coffeyville has been through changes throughout the last 15 years, and some of those changes, you know, basically we've let our infrastructure deteriorate to the point to where we need to take action now. We need to take action now to turn the tide on our community, to make it a better community, to draw businesses and draw people here to Coffeyville community so we can sustain our population and grow as a community. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for those opening remarks. Let's get started with some questions. And our last candidate, Mr. Williams, just brought up infrastructure. That happens to be one of our questions. We will start with Pam Jones. What is your understanding of infrastructure and the needs of Coffeyville?
My understanding of infrastructure
And the needs of Coffeyville.
and the needs of Coffeyville. A lot of our infrastructure is pretty old. As we've seen here lately, we've got water line breakage that we've been replacing. We can't replace streets until we get a lot of these, we address the replacement of these water mains. And we have done swales and intersections, which does help preserve some of the streets. We've got a 70-30 program right now with our with our streets, replacing 70% of them is preservation and 30% is replacement. And we do that as the money comes in. We are not overflowing with funds right now, but we do as we see the need. Our needs of Coffeyville, we need businesses, we need industry. But to get those people to come here, I feel like we need to clean up the town to make it more presentable.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Castler?
Our infrastructure is in great need of fixing. To drive some of these roads in town, it's like playing a video game. You're trying to avoid all the potholes, all the problems that's going to be caused to your car. It's bad. It's hard to avoid. We got to get in there and get the ones that need fixed, not just the main ones. The main ones are great. There's one on Central that's great. You can see bedrock, but many around town, north of town, south of town, east of town, just not in the nice neighborhoods. It needs fixed, and if it doesn't get fixed soon, it's going to deteriorate even more. It has been ignored way too long, and it's time to fix things and stop ignoring things.
Infrastructure means that we need to invest in our community. I agree with Mrs. Jones. We need to clean up our community. We may just have different philosophies on how we're going to do that. The needs of Coffeyville needs jobs. Therefore, to be able to create jobs and to draw jobs and businesses into community, you need to make this community a location to where businesses want to relocate. That means housing, that means things to do, that means investing, and it goes back to the infrastructure. We need to invest in our community where we repair our streets, and everybody's talking about repairing streets, but that is a main priority. We have let our infrastructure in Coffeyville deteriorate down around us. The thing is we're at a crossroads here, and we need to make the commitment as a community that we're going to address these issues and that we are going to make a solid commitment to invest in our community.
Okay,
I want to make sure I answer the question directly. Could you repeat the question?
you bet. What is your understanding of infrastructure and the needs of Coffeyville?
My understanding of infrastructure is simply the stuff that makes the city work. Some of it's not even things that we see. Everybody knows the streets. They're clearly an item of infrastructure. Water lines and storm drains that we don't really see, those are often things that need to be given attention to. Our water and sewage treatment plant are part of our infrastructure. And one thing I'm disappointed that I haven't heard from these three folks, our electric utility is part of our infrastructure, and I guarantee you that when that thing's not working, everybody misses it. And it's important that we keep that cash cow, as I've heard it called before, mooing, because if that thing ever stops working and we don't improve it and keep it running and keep it maintained, it would be a significant drain on our economy and on our city government.
Okay, excellent. All right, next question. And we will start this with Mr. Castler. What do you believe is your greatest strength, and how will your being elected benefit the city of Coffeyville?
I believe my greatest strength is that I know how to stand up for what I believe in. This is not an easy job. There's some people you have to say no to. Some people that need to be said no to. When I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, when the farmland bill came across, I said no, simply because I didn't believe they have been very good citizens. They have left things undone. I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe in. I have a passion to help get the city on the right track. If we did not get the city on the right track, things are going to keep on declining. My passion and my willingness to stand up for this city, no matter what, no matter how many times it's brought down by someone's insults, it's still home. And I want to continue to be home for our future.
Mr. Williams.
Could I get the question repeated, please?
Oh, you bet.
Thank you.
What do you believe is your greatest strength, and how will your being elected benefit the city of Coffeyville?
My greatest strength is I believe that I have an insight into the community that very little people have. The reason that I believe I have this is because of drawing back on my 17 years of law enforcement experience. I have been places and seen things that most citizens in this community have not. What do I think would be an asset? Me being elected to the City of Coffeyville City Commission is I believe that one thing that I'm very passionate about is being a good steward of the people's money. One thing that I think that we have to realize is that when we come up here and we make these decisions on spending money, this is not our money. This is money that is paid from the taxpayers to this community, and we need to make sure that we're good stewards of that money and make sure that we are spending that money wisely.
My greatest strength, I would have to say that I have a lot of leadership qualities. One of those is that I can listen to somebody, and if I don't agree with what they have to say, I can still have a dialogue with them. I know Commissioner Jones and I don't agree on everything sometimes, but we've never allowed that disagreement to become such a hindrance to our ability to work together that we can't still work towards accomplishing things for the citizens of Coffeyville. How will my being elected help Coffeyville? I have experience managing businesses, and I think most importantly, I have experience working with other people and budgeting money. And when you're talking about an entity like the City of Coffeyville that has an $80 million budget, not everybody is really fit, frankly, to be able to budget and handle that kind of money. It can be very overwhelming to some folks.
Repeat the question one more time.
You bet. What do you believe is your greatest strength, and how will your being elected benefit the city of Coffeyville?
My greatest strength is I am out and among the people a lot. I listen to their complaints, and I do something about it. I try to follow up with a complaint, take it where it needs to go, which is usually city commission meetings, and see if we can have things taken care of. I don't make shallow promises. I try to follow through. I've had 5 years, right at 5 years on planning and zoning, and 6 years up here is 11 years. And I try to, like I said, work with people. I'm from here. This is my hometown. I can say what I think, but I don't like outsiders trashing my community. This is my hometown, and I know what needs to be done, and I'm trying to sit up here and get things done, and I think we're headed in a right direction. I think we're seeing positive, and I want to continue to work with the commission and to handle this budget, this $80 million budget. I got the stop.
You got the stop. Okay. All right. Well, this is a question from our audience. With the removal of old housing in Coffeyville, what is your plan to encourage new housing? And we're to Mr. Williams.
My plan to encourage new housing is basically it boils down to economic development. The city has taken the role of purchasing houses and reselling them, and that's great. But the thing is what we have to do as a community is we have to have housing that is, number one, affordable. You know, that's a difficult question because the housing issue in Coffeyville is we don't have affordable housing here. We have to encourage businesses to come to our community, and therefore that draws in population, and people build houses if we get those businesses and places to come to our community. As far as tearing down the houses and then rebuilding in the places that they've been torn down, you know, I believe that's up to the contractors in the community if they want to build in that particular area. I got the stop sign as well.
Don't want to run the stop sign.
Yeah, that's not good.
My plan to encourage new housing, this is really tricky in a town in the situation Coffeyville's in. I think the first thing we have to do is put the word out to the developers in the surrounding area that we're open for business, and we would like for them, if they're willing, to come in and take a look at our community and fill the housing needs. We do know that we have housing needs. And those needs are not just, I keep hearing affordable, and when I hear affordable, I think of low income, and we have housing like that. My fear is the more of that you build, the more people that are gonna live in that kind of housing you're gonna draw to town. And the way we're going to grow Coffeyville is to recruit younger people who are going to work and contribute to the community. We also need single-family homes and duplexes. And in closing, I want to say, I would absolutely not favor any income-based housing in current residential areas. I think that kind of development needs to be in, the locations need to be very carefully chosen and appropriate. And there's my stop sign.
Ms. Jones?
Yes, we've been tearing down a lot of houses, a lot of blighted houses right now. We're not in the construction business, so therefore we can't build back on these lots. But I would like to see us in some areas, not all areas, but in some areas of town to get the lot in lieu of the fee for tearing them down, and give the lot to someone if they will, within a certain length of time, build a new house that sort of matches the neighborhood. That's my dream if I had it. We had a housing authority. Yes, we were purchasing houses and trying to revamp them. Right now, I think we're in an economic depression. We're coming out of it. I can see that. And we just need to let people know that we're here, that we've got lots available, and our needs. We need to talk with contractors. Stop.
Mr. Castler?
I believe one of the problems we have in the city isn't just new homes, it's rentable homes that are in poor, terrible shape. We have landlords who don't really care how their tenants are living. It's bare bones sometimes, and they're not living that good. We need to get places, affordable is good, but we gotta have quality homes built. It's not just homes that are quick put up, thin walls, bing, bang, boom, you're done. It needs to be quality houses. I want people to look at Coffeyville and build something new, but it's going to be hard when you have a lot of old houses that still stand today. We need to work together and make Coffeyville a place where you want to come and set up a home and set up your future.
Okay, excellent. Next question, also from our audience. In your opinion, what is the role of a commissioner and the city manager? And Mr. Williams, I believe you're first.
City manager's role is to run the day-to-day operations of the city of Coffeyville. A commissioner's role is to oversee, budgetary items and things of that nature. It's not a commissioner's place or responsibility to run the day-to-day operations of the city. That's not what we're elected to do. We're elected to, like I mentioned earlier, be a steward of the people's money. And when it comes to the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day, employee issues and things like that, that should fall on the city manager, and that's why he was hired to do that.
Mr. Edwards?
What Mr. Williams said is exactly right, and by state statute, that's how it's set up. I think, and he put it very succinctly, I think the only thing I could add to it is to say that the city commission, in a general sense, is really an oversight committee, and the commission as a group, they have one employee, and that is the city manager. And so by virtue of that, the city manager answers to the city commission. But I've got to say, I've worked with 3 city managers now, Gary being the third, and I've seen all sides of the spectrum. I've seen a city manager that was way too heavy-handed. I've seen a city manager that wasn't, that was very laissez-faire to the point where I think it was a fault. And I think what we have now is something that's very much more in the middle. And I think, given that, I would like to be part of a commission that works hand in hand with that city manager and uses his education and his experience to our advantage to improve our city.
Well, according to the league, the city commissioner's job is to hire and fire a city commissioner and to set policy. Our jobs as commissioners We are not to micromanage. We cannot go in and tell other departments what their job is and how to do their job. We have a complaint, we go to the city manager. And we work with the city manager. And also, the budget. We are here to, like they've been saying, to be good stewards of this budget, to make sure that we're not overspending, wasting the taxpayers' money. It's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money, and to make sure that it is spent. But a lot of people do not know what it takes to run this city. It's a lot of money per month, several million per month, and we have to make sure that we're getting our bang for our buck and that our equipment is up and going, and that's what we sit up here for, to see how our money is to be spent.
Okay, Mr. Kastler.
I believe it's the city manager's job to be in charge, to run the different departments, to do the different things, to do the day-to-day operations. It is our job to set policy and to work within the community and for the community. It is not our job to pick and choose what we want to do and who we want to give things to. It is not my job, if I get elected, to push my social agenda. Whatever I believe is what I believe, but I'm going to do what's best for the community, and that's what's in my best interest.
Okay. Next question. What do you believe are the top 3 issues facing the city, and how do you propose to address them? And Mr. Edwards, you're first.
As I said in my opening remark, my top 3 are streets, the city cleanup, and the recruitment and retention of good-paying jobs. I voted against the 2013 budget that we worked on in this past July and August for several different reasons that all tied back to the first 2, streets and city cleanup. The city commission decided to go ahead and budget the same amount of money to tear down dilapidated structures as what it's done in the years past, and we're not gaining any ground, folks. The blight is continuing to pop up around the city, and the only way that we're going to fix that situation is if we bite the bullet and tear down what needs to be torn down within about a 12 or 18-month period of time and really start enforcing our ordinances even-handedly across the board around the city. The streets, I voted against the budget because I don't feel like we're spending enough money on our streets. There's a stop sign. Brevity.
Ms. Jones.
The top 3 issues facing the city and how do we handle them? Improving the looks of our town, our infrastructure, and taking care of blight. I do believe that we need to start by taking care of our own buildings. We haven't had improvements made to some of these city buildings in ages, and I think that is a priority. We need to take care of what we own. Same thing with infrastructure. We need to utilize our half-cent sales tax, continue with the improvement of our streets. And yes, we are tearing down houses. We're tearing down more than are being built, and that's kind of sad. But some of these buildings were built 100 years ago, and it's like the old boy that says you put it in the oven and forget about it. That's the way some of these buildings were done. They were built 100 years ago and haven't been repaired or kept up since.
Mr. Kastler.
I believe it boils down to image. Roads are not great. We spoke on roads a lot. Infrastructure is one of them. But you look at our downtown, and it's trashy. During the summer, my Boys and Girls Club's kids went down there and picked up trash, and I was appalled at how much trash. If elected, I want to start a Adopt a Block campaign downtown, where clubs and businesses can have some of their workers and some of their members go downtown and clean up a certain block. I want to make our city safe for our children as well. Children cannot even safely walk to school, even closely there. On that road that goes by Sherwin-Williams, it is too narrow and not big enough, and it's very easy for children to get off on that busy road. that is a dangerous thing. When our children try to walk to school, there are dogs off their leashes. We need to do a very good job at retaining our leash law.
Three top priorities for the city and how we address them. I agree that the community appearance is a priority for the city. I agree that streets are a priority for the city. But if we don't provide a location in Coffeyville that is conducive to business, therefore businesses create jobs, then we can have the prettiest town in the world, but there's not going to be anybody here. We're losing population. The reason that we're losing population is because we don't have adequate jobs. The other thing that I touched on is the community appearance. That's very important. People who come to our community and they drive into our town, I mean, first impression's everything. We have to make and work with our local businesses and citizens to clean up the community. We've had, like was mentioned before, structures that haven't been touched in years, and it's our responsibility to work as a community to address those issues.
Okay. There have been concerns about pedestrian safety, particularly in school zones. How would you address such concerns? And I believe we are with Ms. Jones.
Pedestrian safety. Well, we have this really nice school, and it is a top-notch school. I think we have good teachers over there, but the one thing that is a hindrance is the safety of our children crossing the streets. Stoplights, possibility, but a lot of people do not know how much those cost. And of course, a cost compared to a child's life, it's nothing. We've got to look out for the safety of those children. Crossing guards, parents that want to volunteer for their children daily, weekly, I think that's a great thing. I've talked about rumble strips. To get your attention, there's a stop sign ahead. I don't know what to do. We need to work together with Community Elementary School and the school board and see what we can come up with on this issue.
Mr. Kessler.
Around the school zone, it is bad. What we have to do is get people to pay attention, but also we got to do more heavy fines. I talked to a friend of mine who said that someone was on their cell phone, wasn't paying attention, and zipped by and almost hit somebody. We've had people hit over in that area, but it's just not that area that needs help. We have to make stiffer fines for people who don't obey the speed limit and want to zip through. I live on Overlook Street, and people zip down that road like nothing. You can't even ride a bike on that street because people zip by. People don't care, and you got to give them a reason to care. Give them fines, give them whatever it takes. More enforcement, I don't know what else there is, but make people know that they mess around with somebody's life, they're going to pay a heavy, heavy penalty.
Mr. Williams.
For those of you that have lived in Coffeyville for numerous years, I remember when I was young, on 11th Street, they had flashing signs, 20 miles an hour. They came on a certain time. They went off at a certain time. There's no, when we moved our school over to Klein Road, there's no reason why we can't have those there. The thing is, it boils down to two things. It boils down to signage, and it boils down to educating our children. I've got 30 seconds. One thing that I'd like to mention is that we teach our children fire safety. We teach our children, don't talk to strangers and things like that. But one thing that we might ought to focus on is going to the community elementary school and teaching children about safety, pedestrian safety. That falls into the probably the law enforcement side, and I know that the police department does a real good job of educating our children on certain aspects, but that's one aspect that I think that we probably need to look at.
I think specifically when you're talking about the traffic around the elementary school, it ultimately, there are dozens of signs around that elementary school. Ultimately, what it comes down to is a law enforcement issue. And I know that the city has asked the police department. The police department has stepped up their patrols around the schools during the periods of time when schools coming into session and letting out. And then as far as safety for adults in the community who are pedestrians, we have a lot of folks in town that don't have cars, and they walk from point A to point B. Regrettably, in parts of town where there are sidewalks, these folks walk in the streets. And I think probably we could improve those people's safety by asking them to use the sidewalks and quit walking in the streets.
Okay. This next question comes from the audience. Legislators are currently debating legislation to define real versus personal property as it relates to machinery and equipment. Pending the outcome of this legislation, the potential impact to Montgomery County could be huge. As a commissioner, would you cut costs or raise taxes? Why and how? And Mr. Castler, I believe you're up first.
Wow. Very good question. I think Coffeyville citizens are sick of taxes being raised on them. Sometimes you got to, sometimes you don't. Right now as a nation, we're having this problem. I would cut costs a little bit. There are a lot of things that we are spending on. I look at the golf course. When it first started, it was said, hey, that's going to be great. People from around town are going to come to play. Are they? No. There are areas that we could cut cost on, and I think we should.
That's directly related to I believe the nitrogen fertilizer legislation from farmland. I think everybody is in a scared mode right now. I know at the county level, they're talking about looking at like a 38 to 40% property tax hike just to maintain our current level of services. I think that you would probably have to cut services at some point. And I don't want to sit here and make a solid pledge that under any absolute circumstances that we would raise taxes. But the thing is that we, until that happens, it's going to have to be a twofold or two-prong approach. Everything's going to have to be on the table, number one, as being cut. You don't want to cut essential services prior to looking at everything else.
Mr. Edwards.
Cut costs or raise taxes. To directly answer your question, I would say you cut costs. I've been very disheartened. There's been some disingenuous arguments made by people on both sides of this issue. I'm looking at a chart here at the total property tax dollars collected by the city, the county, the school district, and the college. And from the years on this chart from 2000 to 2006, these taxing entities were running about level with the amount of money that they were generating. And then when the property at out at Coffeyville Resources came on to the tax rolls, it spiked up. And now the taxing entities are telling us, well, for us to maintain this level of spending, we're going to have to raise everybody's taxes if this court case comes down against us. And the truth is, all they need to do is go back to the level of spending that they were at before 2007 when this stuff came onto the tax rolls. But you never hear any of them say that because they've gotten used to spending this much money. What we need to get them to do is ratchet their spending back down to where they were at.
I tend to agree with Mr. Edwards. Everyone's gotten used to spending. If you cut costs, you're cutting services, which could mean fire, police, streets. Raising taxes, a lot of people are taxed to death. They're sick of that word, raise taxes, raise taxes. But we need to work together and try to get back to this prior to 2007. We need to do that. I don't want to see us have to cut services. I think that's a good way our money is being spent. But raising taxes, on the other hand, like I said, we need to work together and try to come to a settlement on this.
Thank you very much. Next question, and we will start with Mr. Williams. How do you balance the idea of representing your constituents and voting the way that public opinion dictates versus voting contrary to public opinion on certain issues?
Could you repeat that question?
You bet. How do you balance the idea of representing your constituents and voting the way that public opinion dictates versus voting contrary to public opinion on certain issues?
I think it boils down to common sense. My particular opinion is you vote based upon what's good for the city. You vote upon what's good for the city and what you can consciously live with.
Mr. Edwards.
You have to follow your conscience. Commissioner Jones knows sometimes we're put in a position to vote on stuff that I think frankly we'd really rather not have to deal with sometimes, but that's the nature of the job. And you have to, you basically have to vote your conscience and do what's best for the city as a whole, not necessarily what's maybe best for one particular group.
I've had good friends sitting out in the audience and have to make a decision knowing that that friend has come to me and said, don't vote in favor of this, don't vote in favor of this. But you've got to vote what's good for everyone, not just one person. You've got to vote from the heart, not what's good for you, not what's good for your best friend, but what's good for everyone as a whole. And it's tough sometimes to sit up here and do that.
Mr. Kastler?
When you're on a high status position like this, you get people chirping at from left, right, front, and back, from all single sides, and it never seems to stop. But you got to have a backbone and say enough is enough. When I was on the farmland thing, we had a full audience. It was standing room only, and I thought for a second we needed a riot squad half the time. It got bad sometimes, but people weren't happy with the choice that was made. I wasn't happy with the choice was made, but I knew that was my choice, and I was going to stand firm on that. I didn't understand why they did it, but sometimes as a commissioner, you have to put that behind you and move on. Your opinions matter, but so does everyone else. As a group, it's just not your opinion.
Okay. This will be our final question, and then we will have our 1-minute close from each candidate. So, final question. Coffeyville has had a declining population. What can be done to reverse that trend and attract people to not just work in the community, but reside in the community? And we are with Mr. Edwards.
We will reverse our population decline when we take a long, hard look at our city and make the hard decisions to fix what's broken. I think everybody's heard tonight, there's a consensus about what's wrong with our city. The streets are in disrepair. The housing issue needs to be addressed. We need new housing of all types. Frankly, this is my second stint on the commission. I've been tired of talking about it now for about 5.5 years, and we've got to get to a point where we fix the problems. And that means that as commissioners, folks are going to have to start voting their conscience and rejecting budgets when budget sessions come up, because that's our biggest control lever as a commission is the budget. We've got to start budgeting what we say the priorities are. If the streets are in such horrible shape, and they are, then why have you not voted to increase street funding? If the town is in bad shape, why have you not voted to increase funding to remove the blight? I've done those things. I've not always felt supported.
Well, I live here, and I've been on the commission 6 years, and I look around, and I've come to the conclusion that instead of building, and you don't want to take it exactly how it's going to come out, but we need to quit building new all the time, and look at what we have. We have some fantastic buildings. We've got wonderful people that live here. And we need to concentrate on taking care of what we've got, to improve what we've got. Cleanup. If everybody would clean up their own little piece, their own little spot, I don't know how do you make people have pride anymore, but a lot of it's our fault that we don't have people moving in here. We need to take care of what we've got and promote the beauty that's here. We've got a lot of beautiful things. Roosevelt Drive, museums, Brown Mansion. We've got a lot of nice facilities, a hospital, a school, a college. We need to focus on these items.
Mr. Kastler.
Like I said before, it's all about image, but it's also about having faith in your leaders and having faith in your own city. A lot of times, Coffeyville has been a punchline, and I'm tired of it. I got a message for those who just hate Coffeyville, and all I can do is disparage it. Please move. I mean, I'm sorry, but there are too many people in this community who don't care, and all they want to do is run their mouth and say bad things. I believe in Coffeyville, and I have believed in Coffeyville since day one. My passion is for this town, and if we're going to do something, we got to put the faith back in our citizens. Our citizens need to have faith in its leadership, have faith in this town, that we will succeed. But you got to vote. You got to clean up, and you got to do the right thing for your city.
We've got to support what's here, first of all. We've got to support our local businesses, and we've got to support our local entities and citizens. We've got to take the vast responsibility, like, you know, I agree with Mr. Edwards, what he said earlier. It is going to take a concerted effort from all entities in this community to come together and address the tough issues that we have. Number one, we didn't get here overnight. And number two, we're not going to dig ourselves out of the position that we're in overnight. It's going to take everybody working as a concerted effort to be able to pull ourselves out of the situation we're in now.
Okay. Time for closing remarks. You each have 1 minute to address the audience and your television viewing audience. So we'll start with Mrs. Jones.
Closing remark. Well, I was born and raised here, and I've seen a lot of changes in my many years that I've been alive. We can't go back to the good old days. Those are gone. Life has changed. We need to move on. But like I said, we need to take care of what's here, support what is here. And it's going to be a combined effort of everyone in Coffeyville to get people to move here, to live here. We've got to be positive. We've got to start having some positive remarks coming out of our mouth. We can't trash our town. We've got to be positive. This is our hometown. We're going to live here, work here, buy things here. We've got good neighbors, good people living here, and I'd like to hear positive things. Support what we've got, take care of what we've got, and live for today, not yesterday.
Mr. Kastler.
It's time that we take a look inside, look in the mirror, and say, are you happy with what's going on right now? Are you happy with the state of our leadership? Are you happy with the city state and the way it's going, or do you want change? If you don't want change, then it is like, to me, it's like getting lost in the Ozarks and then taking the same exact route back. It doesn't work. We need change, and we need change in direction and a change in leadership. The way we view this city is going, the way that I view this city is the way that I want the city and the citizens to do. A vote for me is going to be a vote in the right direction. Please consider voting for me for change. It's not an empty promise. I guarantee change. It'll be a fact. I will work together with Coffeyville to make it better with every single one of you who live in Coffeyville. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
I've got 1 minute, so basically, we've got a a choice to make on April 2nd, 2013. If we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. We've got to come to a different mindset. We've got to think different ways, and we've got to look at things differently and make the tough choices for our community. But with all that aside, I'd like to ask for your support on April 2nd, 2013. I've got 30 seconds left, so I want to address one thing. I'm going to speak for all four of us here. I hope you guys don't mind. It doesn't matter. We have different opinions, and we have different ways of probably getting to the end result. But there's men and women that have died across the world for everyone to be able to take the opportunity to vote. They died to give you the opportunity to vote. On April 2nd, 2013, doesn't matter who you vote for. I just encourage you to vote. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones said the good old days are gone, and I think a majority of us would probably agree with that. The question is, how do we create some good new days going forward? And I absolutely believe that Coffeyville still has some great days ahead of her. I grew up in this town. I've lived here a vast majority of my life. I've moved away twice, once to Tulsa and once for college to Texas. And each time I come back, there's more about this town that I like. I choose to be here. I'm not stuck here like I felt like I was when I was a kid. I absolutely love this town. I like the people. And I'm asking for your vote on April 2nd because I want to continue working to make this town better for all of us.
Okay, well, excellent. On behalf of the Coffeyville Area Chamber of Commerce and all of our partners, we would like to thank you for participating in tonight's candidate forum. Thank you for taking the time to put yourself out there in front of all of us and let the constituents be informed on who they're going to be voting for on April the 2nd. Yes, again, thank you so much, and thanks for coming out this evening.
Thank you.